Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you today. If you haven't already, please make sure you say hey in the comments and let us know if you're outside of Effingham or Chatham counties, where you're watching from and who's with you. It's always fun to see how far our streams reach. If this is your first time, there's a link below for a connection card, and we would love to get to know you a little bit more. So go ahead and fill this out and let us know you're here. There's also a section for prayer requests, and the staff has the privilege to pray over these every Monday. So if there's anything we can pray for you about, please let us know. You guys, I'm so excited. We have 4 more days until our Christmas Eve service, and we can always bank on 2 things on Christmas at Gateway. 1, there's always some kind of over-the-top fun, and 2, we end with lighting candles and singing Silent Night. This year, even though we will be online, it's no different. If you would like to come by and pick up some candles for you and your family, someone will be at the church today from 1 to 4, then tomorrow and Tuesday from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Then make sure to be here at 4:30 sharp this Thursday, Christmas Eve, so you don't miss out on any of the fun we have planned for you. Now, if you can't make it at 4:30, we understand. Don't worry, we will repost it at 6:30 for you to watch. All right, today Sam is speaking for week 3 of our I Will Be Home for Christmas series, so we hope you enjoy. Wait, is that someone knocking at the door?
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bell ring. Snowing and blowing up bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells chime in jingle bell time. Dancing and prancing in Jingle Bell Square. In the frosty air, bow, what a right time, bow, right time, to rock the night away. Jingle bell time, bow, swell time, bow, to go riding in a one-horse sleigh. Giddy up, jingle horse, pick up your feet, jingle around the clock. Mix and mingle and jingling beat, yeah. That's the jingle bell.
That's the jingle bell.
That's the jingle bell rock.
Thank you, guys. That was a lot of fun. Listen, Christmas at Gateway is unlike anything I've ever seen. You are not going to want to miss what we have planned for Christmas Eve. So, we like to have a good time, sometimes push the envelope a little bit farther than others, but we like to have a good time. So, welcome everybody to Gateway today in our third message in the series, I'll Be Home for Christmas. I want to start with a story. When I was in high school, I don't want to brag, but I have to, because that was kind of a big deal. I was pretty popular. All 25 people in my class knew me and liked me. I think most of them did anyway. And I played basketball, baseball, soccer, and then towards the end of my high school, I wrestled. We got a wrestling program at my high school my junior and senior year, and so I started wrestling because I thought, let's try that out, see how it goes. So I didn't know that my dad wrestled in high school, and so we had this this thing that we kind of enjoyed together, and it was kind of cool. I wrestled in the 152-pound weight division both years because I'm consistent. That's right. And I did well, actually. I surprised myself. I guess I'm scrappy and I don't like to be in pain, and so I was quicker to put the other person in pain and pin them and get out. But I also knew that if I didn't win, there's 3 rounds in wrestling, and if I didn't win in the first 2, I was going to lose because it was excruciatingly exhausting. I was so tired by the end of it. So it made me work harder and fight harder and win early. And so I played all those sports in high school. But one of the things that I remember most about sports in high school is wrestling and what it did to my dad and my relationship. I knew that my dad was proud of me, in general, but because he wrestled and I wrestled, and we kind of had this bond now that I have 3 other brothers, and none of the other brothers had this bond with my dad. We all had our own separate bonds, but this thing was just for us, and I thought it was pretty special. He would come out to the matches as much as he could. And like I said, I knew that he was proud of me, but I could see it when I was wrestling. Because again, I was really good at it and I was winning a lot. So we got to talk about the matches afterwards, and I was exhausted, obviously, because I mean, it's the most demanding sport I think I've ever been a part of. So I was exhausted, but it gave me life when my dad and I would talk afterwards. Oh man, that was really cool when you did this, or how you broke that guy's arm, or I didn't really do that, but we would talk about the matches afterwards, and it was really cool to be able to have this time with my dad, and it was special to me. So I remember having a good time with all the other sports, but I remember wrestling the most, and I enjoyed wrestling the most, not because it was more fun or it was easier or anything like that, but because it was, I think, a really good bonding experience for my father and me. And so it was good, but it was difficult and rewarding all at the same time. So we're going to look at Israel for a little bit. It's the Sunday right before Christmas Eve. And so we're going to look back at Israel and the difficult but rewarding time that they had. Before Jesus was born, Israel, for hundreds of years, they were in and out of slavery, there were wars, they were losing their identity because of different people taking ownership and leadership over them. So it was a very difficult time. In fact, there was in Isaiah, this is written here in Isaiah 53, verse number 2. My servant grew up in the Lord's presence. And he's talking about Jesus, okay, little baby Jesus growing up in the Lord's presence, like a tender green shoot, like a root in dry ground. So this is what's happening. They about 500 or so years before Jesus was born, Isaiah is prophesying. He's telling about things that are going to come, and one is this life-giving, this shoot, this little plant full of life that's coming up in this dry ground. And so that's a picture of the difficult time that Israel is having. And so Israel, the people of Israel, knew that this Messiah was coming. They knew about it. They didn't know how he was coming, when he was going to come, that kind of stuff. But they knew that he was coming. Another thing that they says in Isaiah, but he was pierced for our transgressions. This is Isaiah 53, verse number 5. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him. And by his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us had turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. So they knew about this Messiah. They knew it would bring hope. This Messiah would bring hope, and it would bring, it says, by his wounds we are healed. The iniquity of us all will be on him. He would bring peace. It says all of these things. And so it kind of gives you, when we sing the song, O Holy Night, which we're going to sing a little bit later on today, sing that song, O Holy Night. There's a line in there that says, a thrill of hope, a weary world rejoices. So what we have is Israel tired and just broken down, waiting for this Messiah. And then here comes Jesus on the scene. So let's fast forward about 500 years, okay? And God sends the angel Gabriel to have a conversation with Mary, okay? And so it's an interesting conversation. We'll pick it up, Luke chapter 1, verse number 28. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you are highly favored. The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled at the words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. So she's probably a little skeptical. She's like, okay, what's about to happen here? She's also, we learned that Mary was a very humble person, and that the angel is speaking very highly of her. And Mary knew Scripture. She knew about God. She had a relationship with God. And so when this angel says that God is looking at you and is putting his favor on you, that was a big deal to Mary. So it goes on, verse number 30. But the angel said to her, "Don't be afraid," which is, obviously. "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." And so Mary is now grasping the gravity as much as she can about what's about to happen. She's understanding. She knew that this Messiah was coming, but she was never in a million years thought that it would come through her. And as a baby also. This is the King of the Jews. It's the Messiah coming to give peace and hope and structure and safety and all the good stuff that they've been missing for hundreds of years. He's coming. And it's a baby through Mary. But she says this in verse number 38. I am the Lord's servant, Mary answered. May your word be fulfilled. Then the angel left her. I am your servant. I'm here for whatever. Doesn't make sense to me, but I'm here, and I'll do what you ask me to do. So fast forward again. We have, so Mary's got the conversation with the angel. You're going to have baby Jesus, right? The Messiah is coming through you. So let's talk about some events leading up to the birth and then right after the birth. So we have this census that's put in. If you've heard the story, you know, you're familiar, right? The census, you have to go back to your hometown, you know, the town where your family kind of originated. And so Joseph and Mary have to go back to Bethlehem, which is about a 90-mile trek, right? So here's what we have. This whole pregnancy is awkward, right? Because back then, you could be put to death if you had a baby outside of marriage. And so they had to be very careful about what was going on here. And, you know, there was another angel that came to Joseph and said, listen, it's okay. You can take Mary to be your wife. You know, he explained things to him, which I think was probably, you know, pretty necessary because this is not something that's common. So we have the whole pregnancy was awkward, inconvenient, confusing, and uncomfortable, okay? And then we have to go she's ready to give birth. And we have to go from Nazareth to Bethlehem, which is about a 90-mile trip, which, you know, I looked up, it would take them anywhere from about 4 or 5 days to 2 weeks to make this trip, you know, depending on how much Mary was nagging and, you know, giving Joseph directions. Just kidding. So when they get there, there's no place for them to stay. So little baby Jesus has to be born in a manger. Could have been a cave. We don't know exactly what it looked like, but it was where the animals hung out, you know. And so we have in our mind this picture, this beautiful little manger scene with little sheep, you know, baying around or whatever they do. And it's a beautiful little scene that we set up on our mantles every Christmas, right? But I don't think it was really like that. Like this is a barn. It's where animals, you know, put yourself in Mary and Joseph's position. They're about to have a baby. They know it's the Messiah, and they're going to have this baby around animals and what they do and eat and poo and other things. Like it was not ideal, but it's what they had, and it's what they did. So fast forward a little bit farther. King Herod finds out about this person that they're calling the King of the Jews. And he was the king of the Jews. And so he sets out to have Jesus killed. So actually, Joseph and Mary had to take Jesus when he was still small, and they had to escape to Egypt. They had to live in Egypt for a while until Herod died, actually, and then they came back. But that, man, awkward, uncomfortable, inconvenient, confusing. Like, this is Jesus. This is the Messiah. We shouldn't have to be doing all of this stuff, right? We can't look at this story here, I think, and just glaze over the fact that, you know, this angel met with Mary, told her she was going to get pregnant, she's going to have this little baby, and it's going to be Jesus. And it's just a great story. But if we look into some of the details, it was a very difficult story. It was very inconvenient and confusing and frustrating and hard. But they had trust in God. They were chosen for a reason. So we can't miss this lesson. If we're following God's will for our lives, it's going to be awkward sometimes, it's going to be inconvenient sometimes, it's going to be confusing sometimes. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it is so rewarding. At the end of that trip to Bethlehem, they had baby Jesus, right? And you can kind of forget of all of that other stuff when you have the why or the answer to what you've been struggling with. So here we have a corrupt government making things very difficult for Mary and Joseph. And my question, I'm going to get a little bit controversial maybe today, but was this God's will? And I think it's easy for us to say, yeah, it was God's will. The story in the Bible says Jesus was born in a manger, right? But at the time, that felt uncomfortable, right? It was inconvenient. It was not how I would have done it. This is Jesus, right? Let's give him the best place, the best room, the best bed, the best blankets, the best everything. It's Jesus. So was it God's will for the difficult times that they had to go through? I would say yes, right? So often we kind of dismiss difficult times that we're going through. We don't learn from them because we just think, hey, somebody's causing this. This is bad. I just need to get through this. I just need to ignore this, whatever. But we need to learn from it. And we need to open our eyes, I think, and understand maybe what God is teaching us through this. So I don't think I'll ever understand why things happen the way that they do. I know that things happen that I don't like, right? There are things that happen to me or around me that I don't like, and that's a thing. I also know that I trust God, right? I trust God. I know that God says he has a plan for my life, plans to prosper me. But I think what we do too often is we come up with our own plan that makes sense, right? We would have taken Jesus to Bethlehem and put him in the best hotel, and surrounded him by people that love him and just soothing music and, all the nice fluffy blankets, that kind of stuff, and some squeezy, noisy baby toys. That's probably the plan. That's what I probably would have done, right? But we need to stop coming up with our own plans that make perfect sense to us and move forward with whatever God's plan is, right? It must be God's plan if I think it's the right way to go. We've got to stop that stuff, right? So here's what we have. We have Mary and Jesus, the Messiah. They could have said, you know what? This is Jesus. I know that Herod wants to kill him, but we've got Jesus. God is on our side. We're safe. We're fine. We can stay right here. But they didn't. They trusted God. They were very practical with what was going on. And they said, we got to go. We got to leave. He's going to kill us. He's a very powerful person. We've got to go. So their trust is so important during this time. Understanding what they needed to do and what the right moves were. I mean, it's so difficult to make these decisions. It's got to be so confusing, right? You have Jesus. And why? It shouldn't be this hard. He's the Messiah. It's the Savior. It's the person bringing hope and peace. Why is it so hard? I don't know. We need to stop pretending, though, that we know better than God. Something difficult happens, and we need to say, well, clearly this isn't God's will for me to be in the middle of this. I need to get out of this difficult situation. So we run. We don't go through what God has to grow us or for us to learn from. We need to stop pretending that we know better than God. Here's what we do know. And we've talked about this a lot over the past year. Here's what we do know. God calls us to do three things. He calls us to love God, to love people, and to point people to Christ, to make disciples. He calls us to love God, love people, and point people to Christ. And this is going to look different for all of us because we all have different talents, abilities. There's accountants, doctors, veterinarians, there's Gulfstream, there's Burger King. There's all kinds of people and gifts and abilities and different stages of life. That's what we have. And so we need to understand, okay, I'm to love God, love people, and point people to Christ in my field or with what circumstances I'm given. That's what we know. Here's what else we know. We don't have the perspective that God has. We don't have the perspective that God has. So when we look at that story alone with Mary and Joseph and the baby, there was a bigger plan that we just didn't know at the time, right? And so we have to make sure that we take a step back when there's circumstances that are going on that are out of our control. This is why trust in God is so important and walking closely with him and having that relationship with God so that we know which moves to take when we need to take them. Romans 8:28 says this, we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. All things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Now, this does not mean that all things will make sense. It's very important that we understand that. All things won't make sense. So sometimes, though, we're too busy fighting against what is awkward and inconvenient, confusing and uncomfortable, fighting against what, in our opinion, shouldn't be happening, instead of trusting that he can still redeem. He can still work things out to good, even though we have to go through really hard times. So we can't fight against what God may be showing us. It's very tricky though. I have a couple examples of what I'm talking about. And this is going to make it even more difficult to figure out, okay? So let's go back. Noah. God comes to Noah and he says, hey, Noah, I need you to build an ark, right? Extremely large boat that's going to house two of every kind of animal right? And I didn't know this, but this took Noah somewhere between 60 and 100 years to build. Are you kidding me? Like, this is God's plan for my life. Somewhere between 60 and 100 years, I'm going to build this boat. Because why? Like, it's never even rained. There's no water around me. Like, this just does not make sense. People around him in the town were just giving him all kinds of hard times. There's ridicule, making fun of him. But he was faithful, and he did what God asked him to do. We have Abraham. God comes to Abraham, right? There's all kinds of promises. You're going to be the father of many people. You won't even be able to count the number of descendants that you're going to have. You're going to have a son. And I mean, just so many confusing and hard things happen in his life. One time he comes to him and God comes to him and says, listen, I need you to move. I need you to leave from here, pack up your things and get out. And I'll tell you when you need to know, I'll tell you where you're going. And this isn't just like, okay, let's get some suitcases and put it in the minivan and go down the road. Like, this is a big deal. It's a difficult thing. And so both here now with Noah and Abraham, we have God inconveniencing them, right? I mean, in a big way. And then we have Joseph. Joseph, the coat of many colors, Joseph. So we have Joseph in his whole life. He's honest and faithful, but he's sold into slavery. He's betrayed. He's looked over. He's looked after, like forgotten about many times. That's Joseph. And then we have Daniel. Stay faithful to God, and you're going to be thrown into a lion's den. Do what you're supposed to do, and you'll be thrown into a lion's den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Do what you're supposed to do, and you're going to be thrown into this fiery furnace. That's what we have with those guys. David, King David. Be obedient. He's anointed as the next king of Israel. And then he's obedient, and he kills Goliath, the giant. Like, things should have been up for him, but now he's hiding in caves. He's running around because he's afraid for his life because the king is jealous and he wants to kill him. That's David. So the theme with all of these people is this: trust. Even though it was awkward, inconvenient, confusing, uncomfortable, they trusted God. They heard God say to them at the end of their life, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done, good and faithful. So at the end of Noah's path, this 60 to 100 year boat build, it starts raining. And now he's able to see, oh, this is what's going on. God was doing this to save us. Okay? And then we have Abraham, who becomes the father of all the descendants, including all the way down into the line of Jesus. And then we have Joseph, who at the end of his story was able to get wisdom from God, interpret a dream, and save Egypt from starvation, and then reconnect with his family and his father. So we see the why, what's going on here. But here's the question: is it God's will for us to go through difficult themes? Well, we see Noah. Obviously, it was. God said, hey, I need you to do this thing because this thing's coming, and I'm bringing it. Like, I need you to do this. I'm causing it. Here we go. Same with Abraham. That was God. Hey, I need you to get up and go. I'll tell you what to do. Like, this was his plan to bring him through this difficult time. Now, Joseph went through extremely difficult time. Now we go back to the verse that we read just a minute ago. We know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, those who have been called according to his purpose. And we see this in Joseph. So my question for Joseph and maybe Daniel and David is, was it God's will? Was it God's will for Joseph to be sold into slavery, for them to tell his father that an animal ate him and he was dead? Was this God's will? Or did God simply work through this difficult situation with evil and all these things? Did God simply work through that, redeem it, and make good things out of it? It's very difficult. It's confusing, I know. But we'll go back to this. We don't see the perspective that God sees. And so we don't need to look at all of the bad things that we think are bad, the inconvenient, the awkward, the uncomfortable things that we have to go through. Don't look at them all as evil. Let's try to learn from all of it and figure out what it is that we can learn. How can we grow? What is God showing me? What's the path that God is sending me on here? But it's important that we focus on our relationship with God and we have trust This is extremely difficult stuff. So I don't say this to give you all the answers. What I say this is, okay, we need to get interested now. And I need to open my eyes a little bit and do my own research and work on my own relationship with God so that when these things come, I'll have a little more wisdom and I'll know what to do. Trust. So these guys heard, well done, good and faithful servant. I want to hear that, the words at the end of my life. Well done, Sam. You did what I asked you to do. Just like when I heard it from my dad after I would win a wrestling match. Well done. Man, you did great. I'm so proud of you, right? I want to hear that from my Heavenly Father as well. Well done, good and faithful servant. The only way to get here, the only way to finish strong is to trust God and don't stop. Trust God, don't stop. Even when we can't see the why. Noah built an ark for somewhere between 60 to 100 years. Couldn't see the why until the end of it. So even when we don't see the why. So here's a question. Have you put your relationship or parts of your relationship with God on hold this year in 2020? We're getting down to the end of the year now. Have you put your relationship with God, different parts of your relationship? Are you maybe waiting for Gateway to open the doors back up and meet in person? Whatever it is, have you put it on hold? This awkward, inconvenient, confusing, and uncomfortable year. Have you just kind of put it on pause? I'm going to wait for 2021. I'm just kind of writing this one off, right? Have you decided that you're going to sit this part of the game out until things are back to normal, until it gets a little easier, until it makes sense to me, until it's more convenient or comfortable? Or are you still working and fighting and running? Are you still worshiping and reading and serving? A lot of times, when you keep going and you finish strong, you get to see the why. Just like with Noah, and with David, and with Abraham, and with Joseph, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. At the end of it, Daniel got to wake up from a great night's sleep with a lion pillow. Right? Noah got a ride in a boat with tons of animals. I'm sure that was very pleasant. So here's the thing. We have to finish 2020 strong. Finish 2020 strong and start 2021 strong. But we cannot hold on until things get normal. Because we don't have the perspective that God has. What we know is this. We're to love God, love people, and make disciples. To point people to Christ every single day. We cannot stop. We don't get to wait until things are comfortable, less awkward, more convenient. We can't wait. Because just like Jesus came at a time where we did not expect it, he will come back again and take us to heaven. And our job is to bring as many people with us as we can. And so we cannot wait. We don't get to write this year off. We don't get to take a break. We have to keep going. So, I have some news. We are starting in-person meetings, gatherings, if you will, in January. Not at the beginning of January. We'll put the information out there as soon as we finalize everything. But in January, we're going to start bringing different groups of volunteers in to Gateway, to the church on Sundays, so that we can hear and understand and discuss the plan to move forward, how we're going to open, here's the procedures, here's what we're going to do for cleaning and all this kind of stuff. Are you comfortable? Are you going to be on the team? Or you feel unsafe? Whatever it is. We need to know who's on the teams, who's ready for when we open back up. And I'm excited about this, but here's what I'm saying. It's going to take as many people that we can find to get into the positions, to watch kids, to greet at the doors, to be on a cleaning team so that we can wipe down handles and clean up to keep everybody as safe as we can be. It's going to take all of us. So we don't get to just wait until we open up the building and then, okay, let's go sit in the seats. Because it's still going to be awkward and inconvenient and uncomfortable. And it's going to take all of us moving forward, working together to be able to create the environments that we're used to at Gateway. To be able to create these environments so that people can come in and feel like they're meeting Jesus, sometimes for the first time. We'll break down those walls. We're going to have a great time. But starting in January, we're going to need your help. And we'll get, like I said, we'll get the information out to you, the dates and which volunteer groups are invited to which date. So pay close attention. We'll be sending emails and Facebook, all that kind of stuff out. But you have to be willing to help, to step in, to get involved, even when it's uncomfortable, when it's awkward. There will be Sundays that I'm not up here at the, on the stage preaching, and I may be back in the back sitting on the floor with pre-K kid teaching the Bible study or answering questions or just kind of hanging out with kids because that's what's needed. It may take all of us doing things that bring us a little bit out of our comfort zone, just like Mary and Joseph. Man, taking a 90-mile trip back then while you're 9 months pregnant is uncomfortable. But that's what God was asking them to do, and so that's what they did. It was necessary to bring Jesus into the world, and so that's what they did. And our job now is to bring Jesus into the world. And so we're going to do what it takes to bring Jesus into the world, even when it's still awkward and uncomfortable and inconvenient and hard. That's what we're called to do, and so that's what we're going to do. We're not taking this year off. We haven't taken this year off. And so maybe you're sitting here today, and you say, you know what? I've kind of put things on hold. I didn't really mean to, but that's kind of what I did. Well, if that's you today, start now. Here we go. God calls us to love God, love people, and point as many people as we can to himself to make disciples. So if you've kind of just, let's wait till things get better. Now's the time. Matt, we would talk a long time ago about, this still happens, but talk about saving money for the church. We need to save money. We do save money. We try to put money in the savings account every single week. But we've had people that are like, we have to save that for a rainy day. And Matt would always say, listen, it's raining now. If we can use this for ministry, we use it for ministry. And that's been the DNA of Gateway. It's raining now. It's time now. We don't get to wait because it's hard, because it's uncomfortable, whatever. We have to keep working, keep moving forward. We have to be willing to help, willing to step in, love God, love people, and make disciples. Let's pray. God, I thank you again for this opportunity for us to learn, for us to be reminded of your will for us. I thank you for what you've shown me over the past few months. And I'm excited about what's to come at the end of this year still, and then into 2021. Thank you, God, for who you are, for what you're teaching us. Thank you that we can't see your plan. We know that you have a plan. We know that you work things out to the good of those who love you, for those who have been called according to your purpose. God, thank you that we can trust in you, even when it doesn't make sense to us. Help us to trust in you, even when it doesn't make sense to us. In your name I pray. Amen. So, exciting news. We're going to start getting people back together, and we're going to put the plan out, like I said, shortly. So stay tuned. It's very exciting. But also, be willing to help. It's important. I can't tell you how important it is, because for all kinds of different reasons, we're going to need more help than normal. Because there are people who simply can't come. There will be people who are willing to come but get sick and have to stay home. And so it's going to take all of us. It's going to be a little bit difficult for the first part of the year. So as we transition to the offering part of the service, man, listen, I am so excited about what we've been able to do this year. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were able, they're just kind of asking, hey, who are you talking about this all the time? And so I was able to actually go through the things that we've done. A lot of the things that we've been able to do this year, just in a short conversation. And it was exciting. It's really cool to be able to talk through those things. And it's because of the generosity of everyone watching, and for people that believe in the ministry of Gateway. There are families that are being well taken care of for Christmas because of you guys. There's just a lot of really cool things that are happening. And I'm not saying you give somebody $100 and it's a great gift. Like, that's really cool. It helps and all that. But I'm talking like 500, 1,000, like 1,500, like just ridiculous gifts that people are getting to help just have a great Christmas, bring some joy into their life, and set them up for success going into 2021. It's been amazing to see what we've been able to do. So thank you so much for everyone who gives. And I know there's a lot of people that can't, that wish they could. And so, man, the prayers, the generosity, it's been amazing this year. It's been a really fun year. And I'm looking forward to what we do in 2021. we're setting the budget for next year, and this part of what we did this year has been a big discussion. Okay, so how much are we going to budget for, paying bills and buying things that people need and that kind of, I mean, it's just, we can't really budget for it. So we're just leaving it a little open, and we're saying we're going to do what God asked us to do. And it's going to take us all. It's going to take generosity. It's going to take a heart for ministry. And so we have that here at Gateway, and I so appreciate this place. So as we end here now, we're going to go into O Holy Night. And like I said, Israel was in turmoil when Jesus came. And so that line, a weary world rejoices, is going to mean a little bit more to you, understanding a little bit of the background of that song. So let's sing O Holy Night with the guys. Thank you. Have a good day.
The stars are brightly shining. It is a night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, a weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night divine. Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppressions shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise his holy name. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angels' voices, oh, night divine, oh, night Christ was born.